Welcome back,
Recording.
everybody. It is the PDPreps podcast. Gus Morris here, Keenan O'Doherty over there. We are coming to you September 2nd. September is here. Football season is here in the North Bay. And we had a great first week of action up here in Sonoma County, Marin, and Napa. Yeah, definitely a pretty exciting, crazy first week. We'll talk about this week's North Bay football poll. Definitely some changes there, especially at the top, and kind of go into some of our big takeaways here from the opening week. So, yeah, Keenan, first week was kind of wild. We kind of had a bit of everything. Had upsets. We had, exciting finishes. We had teams running wild. Yeah, I mean, it was just football's back, and that was definitely a great first week to kind of kick things off up here.
No, yeah, I mean, it was just like a crazy football week across the country, right? I mean, not even on the high school level, college was going crazy, junior college football was going crazy. It just, yeah, just a crazy opening week, but exciting nonetheless. A lot of teams really showed what they can do, and week one's always kind of weird, Gus, because a lot of coaches will tell you, oh, this week is kind of weird because we're still trying to figure things out and stuff like that and everything like that. But it, regardless, it still provided some pretty solid football. So, but week one is in the books. Hopefully, these teams have gotten their jitters out if they had any, and we're moving already on to week two.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I kept hearing repeatedly talking to coaches was, well, we got to clean up the penalties, and it wasn't the cleanest first game, and opening week for everybody. So that's how it goes. But
Yeah.
yeah, like you said, we were not short on excitement in this week. And again, we'll kind of dive into that here in a second. But first, I want to touch on a little bit of how the North Bay football poll shook out. If you missed our first podcast last week, or this our first football poll that we put out last week. We're doing a new project here. We have 8 sports writers, Keenan and I included, our sports editor Corey Young, the 2 writers from the Marin IJ, 2 writers over from Napa, and then also a freelance writer who's done some work for all these outlets. But every week we're going to come together and kind of do our own version of like an AP style poll, and vote on our top 10 teams, do a point system. Whoever gets the most points is that week's number 1 team, so on and so forth. So, yeah, last week, our preseason, top 5, Cardinal Newman was number 1, Marin Catholic number 2, San Marin 3, Windsor 4, St. Vincent 5, kind of about what you expect up there at the top. Well, we definitely have some shaking up here in after week 1. So, taking over at number 1, we actually had 2 teams split our 8 first place votes. But we do have one team that kind of rose to the top by 1 point. This week's number 1 team is San Marin with 75 points. They got 4 first place votes. Marin Catholic coming in just underneath them with 74 points. Also got 4 first place votes. I think one voter had Marin Catholic, I think, in the 3, maybe even the 4 spot, and that's probably what I think cost them just that 1 extra point. But Cardinal Newman dropping all the way down to 3. They obviously, had that really tough opening game against Manteca. We'll talk about that here in a second. Windsor coming in at number 4 with 54 points. Cardinal Newman had 64 points. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. Windsor number 4, 54 points. St. Vincent number 5 with 49 points. Rancho Catani staying pat at number 6 with actually 38 points, the same number of points that they had last week. Vintage climbing up to number 7 with 34 points. They were number 8 last week. American Canyon is up to number 8 this week with 28 points. They were number 9 last week. Casa Grande, which was last week's number 7 team, has dropped down to number 9. Head-to-head loss against Vintage. Vintage looks very good this year. I think Casa might have some rebuilding to do, but we'll see how that goes. Again, very early on. Ukiah standing pat also at number 6, or at number 10 with 6 points. And then a couple of teams receiving votes this week were Petaluma had 3. Petaluma had a good opening win. Santa Rosa coming in here, getting a point. They had a nice win to start the year. And then Tamalpais also hanging on to its spot with 1 point in the receiving votes category. So, any surprises here, Keenan, about what we expected? Yeah, I mean, North Bay poll, second one here. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people were taken aback, obviously, by the Newman result. Yeah, we were kind of talking in the background here. A lot of people didn't know what to really do with Newman, because Manteca is such a strong program, and we thought Newman would hang with them a little bit better, to be quite honest with you. So I didn't really know where to put him. I know, I kind of I didn't really know what to think about San Marin originally, but seeing what they did down in San Francisco, away game against St. Ignatius, that's a big,
Very good St. Ignatius team. I'd say
yeah.
probably the best opening win of any team I'd say in the
Mhm.
area.
Yeah, 100%. Big non-league win there. So, it's head coach Dominic Demar down there is doing a great job, obviously, with Rolovich and all those guys. So, yeah, well deserving a number one for San Marin for sure. I just didn't know, how far St. Vincent how far St. Vincent would move up, if they moved up at all. They definitely have some cleaning up to do after that first game against Woodland Christian. We'll get into that in a little bit, but yeah, everything else kind of seemed to flow out how I thought it would be. Obviously, it's a little bit more interesting, having all these other writers come in and share their opinions as well. Um, I did think it was kind of interesting, and I was one of those people that gave Petaluma one of those points, because they look really good with heavy laden senior class this year. A lot of experience and stuff like that in that offense that they run. So obviously big test this week and another bubble team with Santa Rosa. We could talk about that a little later, but yeah, everything else kind of shook out how I kind of expected it to. What about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, about the same thing. I mean, again, we'll talk about Newman here in a second too, but yeah, not as much movement as I kind of thought there might be just across the board. Obviously with Newman dropping 2 spots and Costigar dropping 2 spots and teams had to rise. So, yeah, the St. Vincent game I thought was interesting. I didn't know a whole lot about Woodland Christian, and again, we'll kind of get more into this later. We're still just touching on some very surface level stuff here, but I didn't know much about Woodland Christian, but that was I mean, Woodland Christian kind of, had St. Vincent, backs against the wall there. That was a pretty crazy game. So don't know what to make of that. But again, this week should be really exciting. St. Vincent's going out to play American Canyon. Two defending state champions. Our two area North Bay defending state champions are playing each other this year, which is super fun. So I'll be out there covering that one this week for a game of the week. But yeah, I mean, like your point about Petaluma too. I think Petaluma could be a sneaky good team this year.
Uh-huh.
Last year I know they snuck into the playoffs and got a playoff win in the first round. And, they were a young team and kind of learning how to, had some new pieces, just a lot of new faces in that team. And this year with a lot of those guys back, I mean, I think they brought back their 3 top rushers. And then, a lot of guys in their line are back too. So, and their defense also, had a great first showing too. I know Montgomery, was kind of banged up in that game. I heard their quarterback got hurt, their star running back got hurt in the first drive. So, wasn't, again, Montgomery wasn't at full strength, but I still think Petaluma, with all the stuff that they have this year, could be a kind of a sneaky team in the Redwood Empire Valley Conference this year.
I think that division could be wide open, to be
Yeah,
honest with you.
I
Um,
agree. I know Casa Grande is the defending champs, but I think American Canyon should be in the mix. I think Petaluma will be in the mix too. So well, yeah, we'll see how it shakes out. But um, all right, that's all we got on. That's all we got for our North Bay poll. Keep an eye out to see what that looks like next week. Again, we have a lot more really good games this year. San Marino has another good game. Catholic has a great game. Newman has a good game. Windsor has a has a tough opponent. St. Vincent, American Canyon playing. Ukiah has a good team. So yeah, this should be exciting to watch, especially coming here the next couple weeks.
these
So
these will probably change a lot going
yeah,
forward.
I know. I'm very excited to kind of see how this all shakes out. But yeah, let's dive into some of our biggest takeaways here from the first week. I'll kick things off, and I think this was the biggest head turner I'd say maybe in the entire Bay Area was Cardinal Newman kind of getting their butts kicked a little bit in their season opener to Manteca. First game in the Frank McManus era was not close. Manteca led 40-0 at halftime en route to a 40-7 win. Again, we'll give flowers to Manteca too. They came in ranked number 43 in the state. I think they're up to like number 38 or something now after that win. Newman was number 50 preseason in the state, but Manteca just took it to him. I'll be honest. And I mean, honestly, it was the game really got out of hand. I think within about a 3 or 4 minute span. Honestly, a 5 minute span. It was just a number of hits that it was just boom, 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 and the game effectively felt over. I mean, Manteca scored on, like I think had a 14-0 lead, I think just midway late in the first quarter, but it was like, all right, Newman's offense hasn't quite gotten going yet. They have a new offensive coordinator, new head coach, trying to figure out, this new system and everything. It's like, all right, well, a lot of game left. 2 scores is really not, was really nothing in high school. But then kind of disaster starts to strike. Good or pretty good slant route, up the middle. tipped ball from a Newman receiver, intercepted by Manteca, taken back 50 yards for a pick six, and now it's 20-0. That's what which is what the score was at the end of the first quarter. Newman goes 3-and-out, kind of starting to press a little bit. Can't get much going offensively, which was definitely one of the main storylines I'd say for this game too. Very first play of Manteca's next possession, 90-yard touchdown, breakaway.
Oof.
27-0 now. And then again, now Newman's starting to panic a little bit and things just kind of start to get worse. Quarterback LT Redamoza, again, a rising, sophomore star, a kid who, we're all super high on, a guy, a great kid too, but a really talented athlete, a guy who has really a ton of potential. First play of Newman's next drive takes a pretty big hit on a design run, leaves the game. He's been diagnosed with a broken collarbone on his right side too, his throwing shoulder. He's going to miss some time, and that's really going to impact the Cardinals here in the next couple weeks, if not for the rest of the season. I think Newman people were hopeful that he'll be able to return this year, but there's no guarantee of that. They're still waiting, options for surgery or whatever. So, first off, just, really hope LT, heals up and gets back to full strength, because he's again, great kid, really awesome athlete to watch. So, we're wishing him the best in his recovery. But, in the bigger picture, this absolutely changes a lot about Cardinal Newman this year. They do have a pretty talented backup quarterback in Carmine Guevara. I don't know if he's taken any quarterback reps, I guess, since McManus got here. But, because they threw in a freshman, Cash Boyd, to finish off the game after LT got hurt. But yeah, it's, Carmine is a good quarterback. Again, LT is coming off of a really good freshman year, and has obviously all the varsity experience, from last year. Carmine doesn't really have a ton of that, but I know Carmine is a very good quarterback. So we'll see if they go with Carmine, if they go with, if they stick with the freshman. But either way, this is going to really impact Newman again for the long haul. Newman's non-league schedule is not easy. This next week, they have an even better team coming to town, and Grant, I think, is ranked top 15 in the state. They had that not great, again, opening loss to Folsom on ESPN a couple weeks ago, but they came back last week, and they kind of dominated a team in I think it was Central East, I think, is a team from Clovis, and they were top 15 in the state, and Grant handled them pretty well. So now Grant's coming up here to Newman, a banged up Newman team, coming off of kind of getting their butts kicked in the first week. And it'll be an interesting game Friday, but we'll see what happens. But looking ahead too, it's like, there's a non-zero chance, I'd say, that Newman might head into league play with a losing record, which is kind of crazy to say, but Pleasant Valley, you have to go all the way out to Chico. That's a tough team to play. Armio and Bishop O'Dowd, I think those are both, pretty winnable games, but you just kind of never know at this point. And then again, the toughest part is going to be in the second half of or in the second half of the season, where, you got to play Windsor, San Marin Catholic, Rancho, Vintage. I think Rancho's better this year. Vintage is better this year. Windsor obviously is a very different team this year, but I think they're still going to be really good. They showed that, they still have some firepower this week. Marin Catholic is always is probably maybe the favorite now in this league. San Marin, obviously, coming off of that big win. So league is going to be brutal, especially if Newman does not have their starting quarterback. And again, I was kind of like trying to predict how kind of the season will go a little bit. And honestly, it's like, to be playoff eligible in the NCS, team has to be 500 either overall in league or against teams in their division. Well, if Newman enters league with a sub 500 record, they're going to have to win at least 3 games in league, to make the playoffs. And if they don't win 3 games in league, they have to at the very least beat Marin Catholic to be playoff eligible, because Marin Catholic is the only other D6 team, in that Newman plays this year.
Base division, but
base division, yes. So anyway, again, this is all like, we're week 1 down. This is overreacting out the wazoo, whatever. But it's still like, with LT going down and with Newman not looking very good, even when he was playing, it does kind of raise some questions of just like, what is this next couple weeks going to look like? Grant, again, is going to be brutal this week. Even again, in the weeks to follow, like I said, those teams that they play to finish out non-league, none of those are easy. So, not the star Newman wanted, obviously, this year. And again, this is a team that's very talented. If LT does come back in the second half of the year, they're going to be really freaking good. They have they have 5 impact transfers, all of whom were on the sidelines for the game on Friday. One of them is King Pitts, the Hawaiian 4-star offensive lineman who's just a freak athlete. I think he's like 6'4". He runs like a 10.9 100-meter too. Guy's just like a
Jesus.
freak. And they also have 2 other lineman transfers who I think are either from Australia or New Zealand. They're freaking huge. They're like maybe I think four. I think I heard one kid say he was 400 pounds, but each one is like 6'4", 6'5". They're massive. And then they also have obviously Owen Graff, the really talented Montgomery wide receiver defensive back transfer coming in, and they have another pretty solid lineman transfer coming in from Marine Catholic and Trip Roca. And they also have a speedy, fun little back from Roseland Prep, Darian Hamner, who I know is a very good player for them, playing 8-man football, coming into at Newman, but he's a very good athlete too. So, uh, end of my spiel here is basically if LT can come back at some point this year, or if they can find somebody who can at least replicate some of his productivity, they get all these transfers eligible towards the second half of the season. They're going to be a better second half team. But I think that now with LT's injury, and maybe if they do take some lumps early on, there's a very good chance now that Newman's not an open division team. But that also might benefit them too in the long run, where if they're not open, then they would be in Division 4, probably for the
Fascinating.
NCS. It could be with this new playoff system. You can only go up 2 spots from your division if you're not if you're not in the open. So Newman, if last year they were an open team, there's a chance this year that they're a Division 4 team. And there's a chance this year that might give them an easier path to go off and to win a section title and maybe have a chance to play for a state game. So again, this is all week 1 overreactions, but I mean, again, this might have been, one of the more interesting kind of opening weeks, just as far as looking ahead and seeing what might happen. Because I think, with the Redemo's injury, it throws so much stuff into chaos for Newman this year. So again, there's definitely some stuff. There's a lot of silver linings for them, but there's a lot too that you're kind of looking at this being like, oh boy, okay, here we go. Let's see what we're kind of made of here. So definitely will be a very interesting next couple weeks / end of season here for Newman coming up after this first week.
Yeah, no, totally. And kind of like you said, the schedule doesn't get any easier. I think Grant is still very pissed off after getting humbled on national television by Folsom. Despite the last win, I feel for that poor Central team because they kind of just had to take the fallback of that loss. But
Well, I
I
think
feel
a lot of people probably watched that first Grant game on ESPN, and people were saying, "Oh, they're undisciplined. They're not a very good team. Oh, they're Newman, is gonna like be this like really tight unit, and they're gonna be be able to, to beat them just because they're indisciplined, even though they're more athletic and stuff." It's like, no, Grant's a very good team. Grant was always going to be better after that first week. So yeah, this week's gonna be tough for Newman. I'll just say that much.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's gonna be fascinating, to see how this kind of unfolds, and kind of like you said, to echo what you said, LT, I hope you get better. And broken collarbones are kind of weird. We saw a couple of them last year. No surgery, but the kids were able to come back. But you never know with
Sometimes
these kind of
surgery helps it
injuries.
go faster. Sometimes it
Yeah,
doesn't. It's just every situation's different. So we don't know how long he's out for. But
but yeah, gonna be fascinating. I think you hit the nail on the head there. In regards to what Newman could potentially look like. And, you know, I mean, it's not like it's not like they're not going to win a game, right? They are going to win a
yeah,
game this year. They are going to win games this year. It's just, a lot of things are thrown into fruition with what happens. So,
I mean, we're
um,
really gonna find out what they're made of too. Because I mean, again, this I think we both agree this is probably the most talented roster I'd say in the entire North Bay. Like they have the dudes.
mhm.
They have a very good coaching staff in here. But it's like, how do you respond after you kind of take a hit like this, where you kind of get embarrassed a little bit at home, in your season opener, and you lose your quarterback? How do you respond? So that'll be again Newman has the horses to keep up with anybody, for sure in the North Bay, if not the entire Bay Area. So now it's just a matter of, all right, can they kind of face this adversity head on and, really find out what they're made of here in the next couple of weeks.
That's the name of the game. So, that's why, Friday we Friday can't come soon enough already because I kind of want to see what they do. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But regardless, I mean, regardless, outside of Newman, Gus, you kind of touch on it a little bit, but the rest of kind of the REC Adobe, pretty solid showings, across the board there.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the San Marin win. SI, I think, was ranked number 14, I think, by the Mercury News, in the entire Bay Area. So that was a very good win for San Marin. Um, Vintage, like we said, I think is very improved this year. They took care of Casa Grande pretty handily last week. You read the Rancho Cotati Ukiah game. I think a lot of people were a little surprised at how close that game was. I think Ukiah is going to be very good this year. They have a lot of guys who are back. Cronin's third year. A lot of 3-year varsity guys too. So I think Ukiah is going to be really talented. But also again, Rancho. I know Rancho had a bigger win last year. Rancho missed the playoffs, but again, I think this Ukiah team is better this year, and also I think this Rancho team is going to be a much improved squad this year too. So, well, I don't know
100%,
what was what,
100%.
what was your impression about seeing Rancho last week?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for Rancho last year was obviously, we know their defense is going to be legit, and they show glimpses of that for sure. They have a lot of returners on the defensive side of the ball. John McClellan, Colorado State commit, Luca Mori really emerged last year as one of the better defensive backs in the area. Obviously, you guys got like Jarek Buckley who really stepped up on Friday night, and their line, not including they have some transfers coming in. Their line is massive. They have some big boys on that line, especially on the defensive line. So, they definitely showed glimpses of who they can be. But one thing I was really impressed with, the improvement of Wyatt Gregory, their quarterback,
Mhm.
from last year to this year. I mean, we always knew he could run. I mean, he's a strong physical runner. Broke out for a 73-yard touchdown, running touchdown. But you know, his throwing ability is like night and day compared to last year. Last year
Mhm.
he only threw like 7 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, only like 1,100 yards or something. They didn't throw the ball that much. I mean, just on Friday night, he already had 2 passing touchdowns, beautiful balls down the seam to Liam Griffith, and then Luke Morey just placed perfectly. Him as a lefty kind of gives him an advantage a little bit, because defenses can't really read him as well as a
Mhm.
right-hander. So, but he's come a long way, and at this point, his it's Rancho can go as far as his arm takes them, honestly, because we know he can run. We know their running game is good with John McClellan in the backfield and some other guys. Um, but I was actually really impressed with Rancho's offense. To be fair, obviously, things
Mhm.
to clean up like everywhere, but Rancho's offense has definitely improved from last year. Um, and I think they really are going to surprise the people. I still think to this day, Coach Garrick Hoteling is one of the best coaches in the North Bay.
Yeah.
Um, and I think I really think they can surprise the people, especially in that Adobe Title League race. Well, so I do think that it's going to be even more of a bloodbath than last year, that Adobe, and which
I'd
is
have
tough to
to.
say because you know what I'm saying.
We had 3 teams in the Open last year, and
I
this year
know
the
it's
and
which
this year
is
the league
tough to say.
might be even more balanced and deeper. So yeah, it is pretty wild. Yeah, no, I think I agree with all your points. Again, I didn't see Rancho, but this kind of lines up with everything that I had heard about them this year. Was I watched Wyatt too at the JC 7-on-7 camp, and I think he won the quarterback throwing competition, which really was just how far can you throw the ball. But I mean, he was hucking it like 50, 60 yards, like, no problem. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, with him, an improved passer that definitely, elevates, their offense a lot. And I mean, even last year, they were competitive in a number of games, even though I think they went winless, I want to say, or did they
I
win
think
one
so too.
game?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they might have went winless. Let me just double check that so people don't get mad at me. But um,
Or wait, no, maybe I think they beat Vintage. Did they beat Vintage?
they might have. This is great podcasting here, people. Hang with us.
Oh,
No, they did
Wizards.
go 1-5 last year. That's right. Yeah. So I mean, even though they went winless, they were competitive in a number of games. The Windsor game came down to the wire. The San Marin game came down to the wire. So this is a team where it's like they were like, even though they went winless last year, they were still kind of in the mix. In a couple of those games. So. if their quarterback's better, if their defense is still, is still really good, and if their offense is just improved, they're going to be a tough out this year. So I definitely agree. I think Rancho is going to be a better team this year. But again, that also speaks to how deep the Adobe is going to be this year, where we're talking about the last year's 0-5 team being better. Um,
Oh,
and
wow.
then I know, and then but good transition here to kind of talk about more of the league. But we talk about San Marin, Vintage, Rancho, even Windsor. Hayden Anderson era is over, but they're super deep now. Carter Vos, their junior quarterback, has made some huge strides. I even had some opposing Annalee coaches being like, yeah, Carter looks really good this year. So, they put up 48 points in their first game. I think 5 players had touchdowns. This speaks to to the depth that they have, and their defense also was really good. I think it was 48-7. I'd say. I think in the fourth before Annalise, scored some garbage time touchdown. But yeah, I mean, again, Windsor is definitely a different identity, different type of team this year. But they still got the have the guys and the depth to I'd say again be a pretty tough team here to play in the Adobe. So everyone's better, it seems like, in the Adobe this year. I mean, again, maybe not. Windsor might have taken, maybe, let's say, a step back, just because, again, you're graduating, the number one player essentially, in the
Hmm.
entire North Bay, but still they're going
Hmm.
to be a very good team, I think, this year too. So the one team we didn't mention is Marin Catholic. Marin Catholic did lose its first game, and actually wasn't a great loss either. Indracom is a solid program, but they're nowhere near like number 43 in the state like Manteca was that Newman played. But even that game, it was still, again, they have a new quarterback, they have some new pieces. I think they're going to be a much better team kind of as the season goes on. But that game they lost by 1. I think it was 21-20 to Indracom. They even had like a chance. I think they scored a last second touchdown and then went for 2 in the win, I think, with no time left on the clock, and didn't get it. So they were, like, again, inches away from, pulling out that win there. But yeah, Marin Catholic, the holy cow. I mean, if you thought Newman's schedule was tough, I was going through Marin Catholic's schedule. Jesus Almighty.
Ridiculous.
So
I'm
over the
looking at
next
it too
4
right
weeks,
now. This is
it's
nuts.
crazy, man. Over the next 4 weeks, so they're going to play 3 teams all ranked in the top 45 in the state. Again, Indracom was just their warm up, and they lost that game. But they're playing St. Mary's Stockton. I think that's this week. St. Mary's Stockton, again, perennial Sac Joaquin section powerhouse. They're number 34 in the state. After that, they play Manteca, the team that just beat Newman. Manteca, I think, is up to number 38, 39 in the state. And then they play Tam, I think, in between that, maybe.
Yep.
Yep. Just again, as kind of a friendly Marin Catholic, or a Marin County game. And then they cap it off with playing Pittsburgh, who
Oh my
is
God.
currently number 22 in the state. And I think they were were they the NCS? I think they were the Division One champions, I think, last year from the NCS. So
Yeah.
Pittsburgh, I think, essentially has been the second or third best team in the NCS for, I don't know, the last 3, 4, 5 years. So yeah, so Marin Catholic, I mean, again, they're going to have a brutal schedule heading into league. And I mean, again, kind of coming off of their first loss, it's like they're going to have to really dig deep to maybe not be. I mean, again, they have, they play Tam, which, no offense to Tam, but I think Marin Catholic is just a better team than them. But um,
Totally.
yeah, it's going to be a brutal non-league season for Marin Catholic too. So definitely interested to see how all of that pans out as well. But I mean, the one thing
Yeah.
you can't say about Marin Catholic is even if they come into league with a 1-4 record, they're going to be as battle tested and as ready for the Adobe as anybody. So, so yeah, we will see. But yeah, Marin Catholic definitely has some tough games coming up. I was looking at that schedule, being like, holy cow, Mozzie is not playing around this year. So
Well, not only that is they start league immediately with San Marin. So they go
yeah,
Pittsburgh to San Marin. And Manteca's going to have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder cuz last year,
that
the
was a
two
close
teams played
game
each
too.
other
Decided,
and
I think that was
29
decided by like a last second field goal or something. So
29-28 Marin Catholic wins. So that's going to, Manteca's going to want that win back. So yeah, that's
it's a
I mean,
crazy schedule.
let's just say, Gus, and we're going to talk about St. Vincent in a minute too, and like some other teams, but teams in our area this year are really up in the competition, regardless
Yeah.
and it's good to see, but holy smokes, it's going to show a lot about our teams in our coverage area, with these schedules. So,
Yeah, I mean, we might
um,
have some teams here that, I mean, I don't want to say that they're going to have like 3-7 records, but we might have some 6-4, 5-5 teams
Yeah.
that are really freaking good, but it's just the quality of teams that they play. They're kind of
Mhm.
overloading, the front end of the schedule here. So, and I think all of this is kind of in response to this new playoff system that we have. And I think a lot of these teams are trying to be like, all right, we're going to kind of test out and see what this, like how much this new system and the max preps rankings take into consideration strength of schedule. Because yeah, it's like if, I mean, again, last year it was like, Newman, Marin Catholic, San Marin, just by strength of schedule, by being in the Adobe, all those teams were pulled up to the Open Division. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we'll see how it shakes out this year, but it is interesting to kind of see more of these local teams be like, all right, we're gonna kind of overload, the front end of our season, um, you know, and just kind of see what happens. So I like it. I mean, again, it makes for some really interesting and really fun, exciting games here in the opening weeks. So,
Absolutely.
speaking of which, good transition here to talk about American Canyon. And again, their highly anticipated game against St. Vincent coming up this weekend. But yeah, I mean, again, American Canyon, St. Vincent, the two North Bay teams that won state champion or state championships last year. American Canyon was the first Napa team ever to win a state title. They've kind of been on the rise, for the last couple of years, but just kind of caught lightning in a bottle last year, and they really picked up where they left off. 58-14 win over Wood. I don't know how good Wood really is, but I mean, again, it was, even if you're playing a bad team, you really kind of have to beat up on them like that. And American Canyon did. So, Andre Lopez, again, primed for a massive senior year, 177 rushing yards on 9 carries, 3 touchdowns. Dude just went off. I'm sure he probably didn't play much in the second half either, but yeah, I mean, they ran for over 300 yards. This has been the recipe for success all last season. So if they're kind of going back to what works, even with the new head coach, again, I think American Canyon is going to be, again, a force to be reckoned with this year. So we will definitely see. I mean, again, this game, I think, honestly, we were maybe looking at covering Grant Newman, I think, is our game of the week this week. But I think after the Redamosa injury, it was kind of like it took a little
Or
luster out of it.
just
I'll
the
be honest.
result.
So
Or
yeah, I
just
mean,
the
it
result.
it took a little luster out of it, honestly. So, but yeah, no, I mean, I think this game, two state champions facing off, two teams where, again, American Canyon, much bigger school, St. Vincent, smaller school. To your point, this is like St. Vincent scheduling some bigger schools here. So, yeah, I mean, this is going to be a really exciting matchup, and two teams that can absolutely fill it up. I'm expecting a lot of points. We'll see if the Gus jinx is in effect here, and it's actually like a 14-10 game or something like that. So,
Jesus
um,
Christ.
but no, I mean, this game is going to be really exciting. And again, it's kind of this clash of these two rising North Bay powers right now, and two teams coming off of historic seasons, and two teams looking to kind of add history as the season goes on. So very excited for this game coming up this weekend.
No, absolutely. And real quick before I go talking about St. Vincent, but I am so high on American Canyon's quarterback Cameron Hunter. I think he is going to be really, really good for them. I know he only passed like 8 times or something like that against
I mean, this was
Wood.
also the name of the game last year for AC, was big explosive plays, and I think he was only five. What was he? 5 of 8, but he went for 131 yards and 2 touchdowns. So
So, kind of pick your moments, and that's kind of what Mason Harris did last year. Obviously, Mason Harris ran the crap out of the ball, and they were definitely more run heavy last year with him at quarterback. So it'll be interesting to see, how kind of Hunter kind of takes control of the offense. But I'm still really high on him. I think he's going to be, such a, you mentioned Redamosa, but Cameron Hunter's, also a sophomore as well. So
yeah.
he's got a couple more years, to really polish himself and stuff like that. But anyways, you kind of talk about American Canyon, and you kind of talk about this matchup, but I was able to see St. Vincent on Saturday, their first real test in Woodland Christian. Woodland Christian, the 2023, uh, excuse me, 2023 Division 5A state champion, at 15-0. They won 11-2 last year. Um, I mean, this team is good. I mean,
Yeah.
the Cardinals are good, and they can light up the scorebook, and they can pass the crap out of the ball. They were just kind of dinking and dunking on St. Vincent's secondary all night long. Just these quick, sharp passes. Just slant routes, out routes, just whatever kind of they wanted. Um, But St. Vincent survived the first test. I mean, it was a crazy second half. I mean, it took forever to get going in the first half. It was just so slow. When then once halftime kind of turned around, things just went crazy. St. Vincent at one point was up 37-20, and then it just Woodland Christian, just rattles off like 21 straight points unanswered. I want to say something like
Yeah, that
that.
was crazy. I remember seeing your updates where it was 37-20, and I'm like, all right, well, game's over. Like I can maybe
Yeah.
stop paying attention to this now. And then all of a sudden it was like, well, the Christian leads with like 30 seconds left. I was like, holy cow, what's going on here? So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So they
a
scored.
lot of grit, a lot of grit there
Yeah.
from St. Vincent to kind of come back and save that game there. So
Yeah, so they were up, so they were down like 41-37 or something like that. And of course, Mason Cattarelli does what he does. 64-yard touchdown scamper with just under a minute left, gives the lead to St. Vincent back and gives the lead back to St. Vincent, excuse me. And then, of course, the defense, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, finally get the stop they needed, and was able to close it out. But Cattarelli, 5 touchdowns, total touchdowns, 2 rushing, 2 receiving, and a kickoff return on the opening kickoff. Dude is just
300
unreal.
305 all-purpose yards for him.
305 all-purpose yards. Dude is absolutely unreal. Gabe Casanovas, he
Oh,
started off
and he
his
had
season
10
campaign
tackles too with a tackle for loss and a sack.
and a sack. Yeah. Gabe Casanovas did what he
Jesus.
does, best. Had a really good start to his senior campaign. Basically, the offense was as stellar as I've ever seen. I mean, the offense was super clinical.
Yeah.
Casanovas was perfect, passing up until he missed like 2 out of the last 3 passes of the game that he threw. So he
Yeah.
ended up going like 13 of 15, like 206 yards, 3 touchdowns passing. I mean, their offense was just as surgical and as clinical as ever. It was the defense, Gus, I think, that needs to shore up big time.
I well
Lots of
what
blown
I'm
coverages, lots of missed tackles.
now that I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but now that I'm looking at this box score, now I understand why this game almost took 4 hours. Woodland's Christian quarterback attempted 65 passes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's literally all they did was pass the ball. It was just it's a pass happy offense, but
Oh
but
my
um
God.
but St. Vincent's defense, definitely has a lot of cleaning up to do. Calling a spade here. Lots of blown coverages, lots of missed tackles, and head coach Trent Herzog and Casanovas, told me after the game, that it was ugly, but a win's a win. But they definitely got to shore up a lot of things, especially on the defensive side of the ball, and they kind of have to do it quickly, right? Because another high explosive, high octane offense in American Canyon is going to be
Mhm.
on radar on Saturday night, excuse me, because it's a Saturday game.
Yeah.
And then after that, and then 2 weeks later, then they have another state champion in Arcata, and then
Who's very good. Very
a
good
week after
quarterback there.
that,
Yeah.
then they have
Mhm.
Rancho Cotati. So it's
Yeah.
like there's no breathing room, and there's really no margin for error if you think about it when it comes to this schedule and the teams that they're going to play later on. But if they put up a defensive performance like that, against American Canyon or even Rancho, Arcata, stuff like that, it's not gonna go well for them, to be quite honest with you. So, um, the line looks a little, obviously, a lot of different things. You lose Robert Rooks, who's now at Rice, one of the best defensive players
Yeah.
in the area. New look line. You got some transfers coming in. Obviously, Lorenzo Webb from Vintage, he looks really good. But it's going to take some time for these guys to gel. It was 91 degrees in Petaluma, and Gus, you've been on that turf, and it makes it feel like 115.
Yeah. It's hot.
So it's definitely hot. So definitely things to shore up for the Mustangs. Offense looks very promising. Looks just about as advertised as we've seen them. Just looks just like a well-oiled machine. Defense definitely needs to shore up some things. If they want to make another deep postseason run. So.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the one thing to your point about the defense is, they're not going to be like they're playing a very different style team this week in American Canyon, a team that likes to run the ball a lot. I mean, obviously, you don't want to give up 447 passing yards like they did against Woodland Christian,
Yeah.
but again, when you pass the
65
ball,
pass
that's
attempts.
crazy. That's an insane number. And a loss, no less, too. But again, American Canyon is not passing the ball 65 times, 66 times, actually. Someone else threw a pass. But so very different game. But again, I think to your point as well, they're seeing a pass heavy team in the first week and seeing a run heavy team in the second week. So yeah, they're really going to find out kind of where they have to fix some stuff up and where their holes are and everything. And again, it's super early, so I'm sure there's holes like in a lot of places, but that's what the preseason is for, is to figure out what you have to fix and go forward and fix it. So well, that is about, I think that was the last topic I think we had for this week. But Keenan, anything else that you wanted to mention before we get out of here, send the people on their way into which should be a really fun week 2?
No, I don't think so. I think we hit the nail on the head. Obviously, shout out Santa Rosa JC football, big win over City this past weekend as well. Just kind of keeping things around the area. We're gonna have a preview on them coming up this week. Um, think Gus, I think you're gonna be on American Canyon St. Vincent on Saturday.
I got Newman versus Grant on Friday, so we'll see how that goes. And then I'll be at American Canyon on Saturday night for that 7 p.m. kick against St. Vincent. So two bangers this week for me. So I'm definitely excited to kind of see how things shake out. So it should be fun.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I think that's it, guys. Thank you again so much for tuning in. Week 2, we're already, the season's gonna fly by and be over before you know it, ladies and gentlemen. But appreciate you guys, you know, taking the time to watch this and joining us weekly. And yeah, we'll see you guys next week.
Stay tuned, guys.